There are over 100,000 people who immigrate to New Zealand every year with the intention to make New Zealand their home, leaving behind everything they know as normal day-to-day life and having to learn new ways of doing things, new norms, new cultures, and different values. There are many people who struggle with this transition and find it challenging to adjust and settle, so they can call and make New Zealand their home. The purpose of this podcast is for me to share my journey and our challenges with the hope that you can learn from me and my family and have a softer landing. There will be good days and bad days, but with time, more good days. I believe we have made the right choice for our family. I want to try and help you do the same, but hopefully with a softer landing. This is Soft Landing, and I am your host, Brett Corlett.
Welcome to this podcast, designed for anyone thinking about, preparing for, or who has just immigrated to New Zealand. Subscribe now so you never miss an episode. Drawing from his personal experience, this series will guide you through the process of preparing for your move and helping you navigate the challenges of immigration.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me again on my podcast. It's awesome to have you back. If you've been constantly listening, I really appreciate it. And for those of you that are listening for the first time, thank you for joining us. I really hope you enjoy the interview I'm going to be doing today. If it's the first time that you're actually joining us, and for those that are joining us, I hope you enjoy the interview today. But I do ask, if you haven't listened to any of my podcasts before, please go back to the first podcast, have a listen from the beginning, so you can get to know me a little bit better and understand what I'm trying to accomplish here with the podcast that I'm doing and trying to help immigrants make New Zealand their home. And with that today, that's why I've actually got a guest today, Andre Cronje, one of my friends that I used to work with back in South Africa. He's offered to let me interview him on a podcast. And the reason I want to interview him is at the moment in New Zealand, and I've spit it out on some of my other content, people are really struggling in New Zealand at the moment with finding jobs, finding it really challenging. And I know there's a lot of other factors outside of our control with the economy and everything else. But it's just trying to find that first interview and actually trying to get that interview. And, you know, he's got some real nuggets of gold that he wants to share with us that I had to be able to share with the rest of you that can hopefully help not only immigrants, but anybody actually get that first interview so they can actually get jobs, so that they can actually make it work here in New Zealand and make New Zealand home. So with that, I'm going to introduce and hand over to Andre and let him introduce himself. Hey, Andre, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So let's start where I am currently, I think, and then work backwards from there. I'm the general manager of a defense company. It's based out of New Zealand. We have a sales office out of Australia. The company is owned by a large defense group in the UK.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey on how I ended up there. So we arrived in New Zealand 7 years ago, June.
Yeah.
With a wife and 3 daughters. I had exactly about $3,000 in my pocket and two suitcases each. So we were not going to bring a container. We didn't have the funds to bring any type of containers or buy anything new when we got here. So we had enough money to put a deposit on home, and we pretty much went from there. That's kind of what we did. So we landed in Auckland, 12 o'clock in the evening, not really knowing which direction to go, what we were going to do. I had one brother-in-law in Auckland, so he was there to catch us, and then we stayed with him for 2 weeks, and then we moved into our first rental. So New Zealand's been exceptionally good for us for the past 7 years. I must say, it's been a heck of a journey. It hasn't been without our troubles. We've definitely struggled quite a lot. But I mean, all that all contributes to the adventure, right?
Yeah, 100%. So maybe tell us all a little bit more, Andre, back in South Africa. What did you do in South Africa? Why did you choose to come to New Zealand? Why the move?
Well, in South Africa, I actually started out years and years ago when I started my work career. I started in sales. I was selling braais at a hardware store, believe it or not, in Edinburgh.
Barbecues, hey?
Yeah, braais and barbecues. That's where we started, right? So I went from there and I sort of took a pay cut, and I was lucky enough to move into the IT industry because my cousin knew someone that got me a job, right? So I started working for 3,000 Rand a month and started cleaning keyboards in the IT industry. And I sort of built it up from there. Gained a bit of experience, ended up working at Anglo Platinum for a while as a contractor. There, I actually I moved into the telecommunications. The guy that did the telecom sort of didn't show up for work. So I sort of fell into doing the telecom stuff right back in the days of old PABXs. So I did all the telecom stuff with all the wiring. Sort of did that for a number of years. Then, during that time, I actually joined the police as a police reservist.
Yeah.
So I spent about 10 years as a police reservist in South Africa too. Did a number of things, everything from complaints, to roadblock task team. We did some high risk warrants. So there was a number of things that I did over there. But that was in my spare time, right? It's a bit of a strange hobby to have, I suppose, but we all have our things. So that's a hobby that I had. So I worked in the police, and then I sort of built my career in the IT and telecommunications space.
Yeah.
Then I moved to Bytes Communications. From Bytes Communications, I moved over to a company called Atio, which is where we met. Obviously, we worked together at Atio, right? So I was just a normal IT techie or a telecommunications techie. I was going from client to client, sort of fixing issues, fixing faults, fixing mistakes.
Yeah.
Then I had an idea for a telecommunications system to actually work underground in South Africa in the coal mines, right? Because my dad used to work in the coal mines for years. And I had a conversation with him one day, and he explained to me the struggles they have with telecommunications. I had this idea of, let this all work for a power line communication system. It's always in my head, right?
Yeah.
So I took a chance one Monday morning, and I stopped at one of the mining companies in Boksburg, walked in the front door, sort of said, "Hey, can I have a meeting with your GM, please? I'd like to talk to the guy," and fully being expected to be told to be on my way. I actually called him, and the guy's name was Gavin, a heck of a nice guy. He came down, and he actually gave me 15 minutes to do this impromptu pitch. Right. So I did this impromptu pitch with a motorcycle helmet and a leather jacket in my hand. Anyway, so I did this pitch, and he sort of looked at it and went, "I think there might actually be something there. We'll call you back." So I left, never thought I'd hear anything from him again. So I went about my day, and about 2 days later, he called me back again. So I did a second pitch of this idea that I had in my brain.
Yeah.
And about 2 weeks after that, he called me back up again and said, "All right, we're willing to try this, invest in this idea of yours, but we want you to come and sell it." Right. So I had a bit of technical background because I was working in telecoms and in IT. I had a bit of sales background because I used to sell fireplaces in Bryce, which is not the premium sales experience, but hey, I had something going on there for sales too. Right. And I did this pitch, and they offered me a job. So that's actually why I left the telecommunications industry. And I ended up in the mining industry, working for a mining company. Within about 6 months, I found myself as being head of their R&D department. So I was running about 6 or 7 different R&D projects, of which one was my idea. And I was going out to the mines every day. This is the best job that I've ever had in South Africa. 27 was a phenomenal year for us in SA, right? I really loved what I did. And then one of my daughters almost got abducted out of a chain store. My wife was in one of the large chain stores in South Africa, and it was my mother-in-law, and my daughter was 3 at the time. And 2 gentlemen walked past, grabbed her, and almost got out the door with her. Luckily, some of the other people intervened, and there was security at the doors. They sort of blocked off everything, and these 2 chaps sort of pushed their way through, dropped my child, and ran away.
Yeah.
And after that, with everything that I've seen during my work in the police in South Africa, that being the straw that broke the donkey's back, me and my wife sort of had a conversation and decided, listen, and about a year or 2 before that, my brother-in-law actually moved to New Zealand. So we were just going, okay, we need to move somewhere else, anywhere else. But we didn't know anyone anywhere else but in New Zealand, because this is where my brother-in-law lived. So we went, well, fine, that's where we'll try and go then. So I took all the leave that I possibly could. I sold my motorcycle, liquidated some of my assets, got on an airplane, flew to New Zealand. I spent exactly 2 weeks. Everyone told me 2 weeks is not enough to find a job. You cannot find a job in 2 weeks. All right. Even one of the agents that I spoke to said to me, "You're wasting your time going for 2 weeks. You need to go for at least a month to 2 months. You're not going to find a job."
Yeah.
I just figured, well, I'm going to have faith in this leap of faith. Do what I can. Right. So I jumped on the plane, came across for 2 weeks. I attended probably about 5 interviews.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, went back home, got home, no job, no nothing. I thought, well, we'll save up for 2-3 years. I'll give it another go. And probably about 2 weeks after that, I got a phone call from one of the interviews, and they sent me a job offer, right? The job offer was at a media company in Auckland, and it was a door-to-door salesman job for $56,000 a year, right? So that's what I started on.
Yeah.
Most people will tell you, if you're not earning $100,000 a year, you're not going to make a living in New Zealand, right? We moved here, a family of 5, me, my wife, and 3 kids. on 56 grand a year and $3,000 in our pocket.
Yeah.
The visas did everything. We flew across, and this sort of now flows into where I told you where we landed in Auckland Airport. And I said to my children when we came across, anything you pack in your 2 bags that doesn't fit in those bags, you no longer own.
Yeah.
We gave things away. We sold everything. I quit my job, did everything. We got on the plane. We flew to Auckland, 56 grand a year. So I'm going to be a little bit transparent about the financial stuff because I think it's important for people to know. We put down a deposit on a house, on a rental. We rented the home. We were lucky enough to find one in about 2 weeks. Moved into the rental property, and I took home $820 a week. My rent was $620. 1 week we would pay the rent and buy food, pay the rent and and pay our little car. We would pay the rent. On the 3rd week, we would buy groceries and then pay the rent. And then we'd buy a little bit more groceries on the 4th week, right? That's how we did it. Then my children, the pan that you get in the oven, right? When you move into a rental, we ate out of that because we didn't have plates, right? We had about 4 forks. And the day before I started working, me and my wife took a walk down to Downtown, and I could either buy underarm spray or I could buy hair gel, not both, right? That's the amount of money we had. I think we had something like $25. That's it. We had nothing, literally nothing. We had 2 mattresses we borrowed from my brother-in-law, and we had a small bar fridge we borrowed from my brother-in-law, and we lived in a completely empty house with absolutely nothing, right? And we slept on the floor. The clothes out of our bags, so I bought some hair gel, borrowed some underarm spray from my brother-in-law, so I was kind of presentable at work. Yeah. Then along the way, I met a phenomenal guy that I worked with, also a South African guy. His name is Dirk Botha. Shout out to Dirk. He's a phenomenal person. When I got there, he paid my bus fares for me for the first 3 months so I could get to work and back. I had no money to get to work and back.
Andre,
there's no way.
You've just mentioned Dirk Botha. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
You know him.
I know him. I didn't even know we knew the same person. So I'm sorry I'm interrupting. I'm like, oh, geez, it's a small world. But yeah, just crazy.
We still go and visit Dirk Botha once a year at least. Him and his wife Lana were literally our guardian angels. They kept us alive. He would bring me lunch to work every day so that I had food to eat. He paid my bus tickets for me to get to work and back. And if it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't have made it. Right. So they kept us alive. Anyway, so they also donated things like cups, and they gave us like some kitchenwares, and they gave us a lot of stuff, right, to actually help us, just so we got some stuff to live with. Anyway, so now I'm doing door-to-door sales. So in South Africa, I was head of research and development for a mining company. I come to Auckland, I'm doing door-to-door sales, right? I put myself back in my career. 15 years, I'm earning a fraction of what I earned in South Africa. We have an empty house. We have nothing to live on. Then just to get a bit of extra money in, we actually took 2 homestay students from one of the schools. We borrowed some tables and two little beds from my brother-in-law. We got the homestay kids to come and stay with us. We got $300 a week each for the 2 homestays. For about 2 months, they stayed with us. We used that money to buy more food and to buy BYD devices for our kids and that kind of stuff, right? So that's how we got that through. My wife then finds a job as a casual working in a warehouse for a flooring company. Yeah. In South Africa, she was an office manager for a really large health insurance company. Now she's working in a warehouse with a hard hat and gumboots, right? So she's packing shelves, climbing on shelves, doing stock take as a casual working a really displeasing job, to put it that way. I'm doing door-to-door sales, so I would get dropped off in a commercial area during the day, and I'm literally walking from factory to factory, door to door, knocking on doors, asking people if they would like to buy advertising space on this specific Christian radio station, right? Which didn't make it easy, and I'm earning 56 grand a year. We've got almost no money. It's tough, man. It's hard.
Yeah.
But the country's beautiful, and we love the place, right? It's all part of the adventure. So all the time, not once did we have a poor us mindset. Sort of looking back, we kind of just thought, man, this country's beautiful. We absolutely love being here. This place is great, right? And so then it comes to fruition that we would never be able to get residency as long as we live in Auckland, because it deduct 30 points for you. So we would have not enough points in Auckland. Now we need to move. So I started applying for jobs. And I was lucky enough at that stage to read about and learn about something called skill stacking, right? Which is one of the golden nuggets that I found in New Zealand that works phenomenally well. We can get into a little bit of detail that a little bit later. Sort of skill stacking and what my CV should look like, right? So I said, TV up, and I start applying for work in all over the country so I can get out of Auckland so we can qualify for residency. I get an interview in Wellington, which is where we stay at the moment, right? I get an interview in Wellington. So the plane ticket is about $180. We have $200 a week disposal. So we use our grocery money in the third week. So we didn't buy food that week. We actually went to go eat at my brother-in-law's house. So we had food to eat. So we used our grocery money to buy a plane ticket so I could fly down to Wellington. I had to ask the company to pick me up at the airport because I had no money to be able to just grab any sort of transport from the airport to the office to do the interview. Do that. I attend the interview. We use our grocery money, fly down to Wellington, didn't buy food that week. Attend the interview. Interview goes well, right? As a business development manager for a sort of a property parking company, right? So this is where I use my skill stacking for the first time. And what skill stacking means is, let's say I've got sales experience. I had sales experience in the past, but I also did some technical work in the ICT industry. Now I am equipped to do technical sales, right? Because I stack those different skills. I stack my sales with my technical skill, with my BDM skill. You stack these skills into like a little burger, and depending on what kind of job you're applying for, what you're trying to do, you can rearrange that stack according to what would be the best suited for that specific position you're going for, right? So first it was sales. So the top layer was all about sales. Then I had a bit of technical experience. Now I'm going for this business development job. So now I'm going, okay, this is very technical and it's BDM work. So now I move the technical skill to the top of the pile going, hey, I've got all this ICT technical skill with all the projects I work with in South Africa and telecommunications, as well as I can do sales. I can do all these different things, right? So the interview goes extremely well. Another thing that I learned from that experience is South Africa is extremely focused on skill over culture.
Yeah.
Right. How good are you at what you do? What qualifications have you got? What jobs have you done before? It's all around skill. And then there's a little bit of culture. This is something, we've probably helped about 8 families move to New Zealand since we've been here. And usually when I do a bit of coaching with them, this is what I would tell them is New Zealand is the opposite. They're very much skill over culture. Culture over skill, sorry. They're very much culture over skill. So whenever we did interviews at one of the previous companies where I would do the interview, and then afterwards the managing director would come to me and say, tell me about the candidates. And I'd go, oh, this is my preferred candidate. And he would ask me the question, do you like them? And I would proceed to say, oh, they got a master's degree in this. And then he goes, no, you don't listen to what I'm saying to you. Do you like them? And the MD always used to say to me, if you're at a barbecue or a social event, would you get along with them? Do you like them? And he always used to say to me, if we can teach someone how to do a job, right? But if he is not likable and we're not going to get along with him, then we can't teach him that. So they're very much of the idea that they can teach you how to do your jobs. They can help you grow your skills and experience. But if you're asked for that matter, then no one's going to want to work with you. They can't teach you those soft skills and how to get along with people, right? So very much culture over skill. I learned that too. So there's another nugget in there for South Africans when they come. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be the most qualified person for the job. You need to be the guy that's going to fit into the team, not cause any conflict and be easy to work with, right? You're going to be the guy. You're going to be the guy when the chips are down and they're going to go, who's the guy that's going to be there having your back? People need to point to you. He doesn't know everything, but man, this guy's going to be there to help us. That's what they want. They want that cultural component.
So, Andre, is that relevant only to South Africans or is it any immigrant?
No, I think that's pretty much with any immigrants, right? At the moment, the team that I have consists of, we've got people from China. I've got some Iranians from Iran. It's actually working for us as software devs. I've got guys from France. I've got, I think I mentioned Chinese before. So we've got South Africans, got guys from the UK. And I must say, a lot of the cultures like the South African work culture, where it's extremely skills driven, right? Yeah. They come with that mentality of my culture and how I'm going to fit into the culture, and my personality is far less important than look at my accolades, right? And usually in an interview, if I can see someone is competent, I have a software developer that I'm interviewing, and they're blatantly competent at what they do, I would usually go into, what do you do for a hobby? Tell me about your family, to sort of gauge how we would get along if we work in an environment and not everyone agrees, how would they react to that? Would they disrupt the culture in the company, or would they be part of the culture in the company? And that is a huge thing in New Zealand, right? We would rather go for someone that would be a fit for the culture that is not as qualified as the most qualified person, but is going to be a toxic individual, right? Where in South Africa, in my experience, and I just want to add a footnote to this, everything I say is in my experience. I'm not saying this is the way it is. This is how I experienced it. Right? Anyway, so just to get back to, so then I ended up as a business development for a company in Wellington. There was a lot of technical and there was a lot of sales, right? Then I reported directly to the business manager or the general manager or the country manager, whichever you want to call him. He then fell sick for a while and I sort of was acting, right? So that gave me another thing to put on my CV to say, I was acting business manager for a specific period. So when you skill stack, there's another layer in my stack, right? Which I can rearrange depending on what kind of job I'm going to be applying for, right? So did that for a while. And there was quite a drama because we had to swap visas. We had to get brand new visas. It was quite a mission, right? To get all that done. Then we needed to move down to Wellington, a little bit of stuff that we got donated in Auckland. And I met another South African that was kind enough to donate me the money to actually move from $3,500 I got given by another South African that said, well, you need this more than I do. You actually move from Auckland to Wellington to rent a truck to be able to move my stuff, right? So other South Africans that we've met here has been a lifeline and stepping stones for us like I cannot even tell you, right? If it wasn't for the South African community and community members and people like yourself for what you're doing here, then we would have had a much harder time and we probably wouldn't have made it, right? So that kind of support was immensely important to us. Anyway, so I moved down to Wellington. I'm a business development manager, but I'm on a work visa. So I'm not moving. I'm not doing anything, right? So I work in the technical parking property sales space, right? So it's a bit of a weird industry that I'm in now because in South Africa, parking is not really a thing that exists.
No.
In New Zealand, as soon as you get here, that's one of the things you're going to find out real quick, right? Parking is wildly expensive and it's a very emotional subject for a lot of people, parking, right? I never figured parking.
Tickets, all the rest of it as well. Parking too long in certain spots. So yes, we're going to run it all. But
I never figured parking would be such a big deal. But anyway, so I actually work in that industry. I work in that space, right? So then it is COVID hits, everything shuts down, right? So our residency application is in. We're really hoping for this residency to come through, running out of work visas. It's getting to the end of the time where we need to reapply for work visas, residency application. Really hope the residency is going to come through before the work visa runs out. It doesn't. Everything shuts down. COVID, 2 years, right? Nothing happens. So after 2 years, COVID in New Zealand for us was actually pretty good, right? I've got to add that too. If you could have been anywhere in the world during that period, I think New Zealand was a pretty good place to be in, right? I know there's a lot of talk about all the different lockdowns and Auckland was locked down for so long. And where we stayed, we had a little back garden and a very tiny place, very tiny. I mean, the house we lived in Wellington, when we just moved here, would fit into my garage in South Africa, right? I kid you. With a sliding door we could open, I had a little garden outside. Me and my wife set ourselves up. We worked from home opposite each other. It was beautiful weather, pretty much every single day. So we were outside in the garden. We were just spending family time together. For us, it was a really good time, right? We worked from home. The whole family was together. We were in this absolutely beautiful environment. And in the first year or two that you're in New Zealand, you're still in the honeymoon phase. Like everything just blows your mind, right? It's so beautiful. And it was so peaceful. It was great, right? It was a bad time in history. It was a pretty good time for us, right? It wasn't bad. It was actually good. Anyway, so we go through all that. And then I get a call from a technology company in Wellington. They've been around for 104 years, believe it or not, right? They run, I'm not going to say who they are, but they run parking services for councils and water treatment plants. And they do councils in Australia, huge software business, right? Software as a service. And I get a recruiter that contacts me and says to me, listen, I have a sales manager position available. Would you be interested in applying for this position? I go, I would love to apply for this position. It's a lot more money than I'm earning at the moment. However, I'm on a work visa. I've got a pending residency application. Sorry, mate, I can't do it. I just can't move now. It's just too much of a hassle. That was, he called me, if I recall, on a Thursday. 3 years after we applied for residency, that following Monday, my immigration officer calls me on the phone and says, "Hey, I got your residency application. Can we do a quick interview?" Right. So I almost jumped out of my skin, ran into the boardroom, locked myself in there, did a 40-minute interview with the immigration agent, with our case officer. And at the end of the call, he says, "Yep, everything looks good. No problem. You should have your visas within a day or two." So I immediately proceed to jump on the phone, call the recruiter back and say, "Hey, I didn't have residency on Friday. I might have it this week, right? Is that position still available?" So he sets up an interview, and I go for an interview for the sales manager position at a large software company in Wellington. So I get that job, which is great. Now I have a company vehicle, right? So there's a bit of a build up there. Now I have a company vehicle. I'm earning a bit more money. My wife, in the meantime, when we moved to Wellington, still worked for the same company. They just transferred her down here, and they gave her a position working in operations, where at the moment she's now progressed to being the operations coordinator for the entire Greater Wellington region, right? Still working for the same company, earning a great salary, company vehicle. She's built herself up from being a casual in a warehouse to virtually being the operations manager for the Wellington region, operations coordinator. She runs all of the operations for the Wellington region at the moment, the same company, right? Just goes to show that if you have a bit of dedication, you're easy to work with, you fit into the culture, they like you, you will make immense progress within the organizations, right?
Yeah.
With my wife, the testament of that. So my path forward was jumping from stone to stone through different companies. Each time I jumped up.
Yeah.
She stayed within the same company and she climbed the ladder straight up, right? That's what she did. So we took different paths, but both of us had that progression to show. Then I was in the national sales manager position. I was actually first just a normal sales manager. So looking after all of the Wellington councils, North and South Island. The greatest perk of the job was I got to, on company funds, drive the entire North and South Island once a year to visit every single council, right? Because they're all their customers. So I'd go do a council visit. It'd take me about 2 weeks, drive North and South Island, stop at every single council. So I've seen every town in New Zealand, North and South, that has parking services and water treatment plant services. And I spent time there. That was probably one of the greatest things that I've ever done. Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. And it wasn't even on my time. It was so, So I got to spend North and South Island, see all of it. It was great. But then I became the national sales manager for the same company, right? Running all of the technical teams, so all the software devs, hardware development, sort of doing all the contract, all the sales. Because now remember, I've got sales, technical. Now I have running software teams. I have running hardware teams. I've got business development. I've worked in property. I've worked in parking services. So now my skill stacking cake sort of has a couple of layers to it, right? Which I can now reorder depending on where I would like to move, right? So from there, I was eventually the national sales manager. Then one day I'm sitting, when you go on to Seek and you sort of apply for certain jobs, you can add alerts.
Yes.
They would email you about certain jobs, right? So I get an email about this one position. All it says is general manager, doesn't say what, for who, how, what, with a whole list of requirements. In this list of requirements, I'm now matching this list of requirements, right, with my skill stack. And I sort of draw correlations. I go, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. I am not a master of any of these things at all. Yeah, but I'm a jack of all these trades, right? So I've never been a sales guru in my life, but I've done sales. I'm not a technical guru. I've worked with people that are technically far smarter than me, right? But I've got the technical experience. I know enough to know when something's not true. That's all I needed to know. Anyway, so I stack all these skills. I applied for this job, and I apply with a one-page CV, just one page, for a general manager position, right? But I spent probably 2 hours writing that one page, because I think this is a good opportunity to explain what I mean by it's important to be able to know how to compile a CV. Because when you talk to recruiting agents and that kind of thing, everyone goes on about a New Zealand format CV. So I've now asked a number of recruiters that I work with, what does a New Zealand format CV look like? And they all look at me like I'm crazy. They go, "What are you talking about?" And then people that I work with at all these different companies where we did recruitment, I would always say to the HR lady, the recruitment people, the recruiters, the general managers I used to report to, I say to them, "Can you explain to me what a New Zealand format CV looks like?" And no one knew what I was talking about. Kiwis don't know what a New Zealand format CV is. right? So when they charge people 5 or 6 or 10,000 Rand to bake your CV into a New Zealand format CV, I'm always thinking to myself, what are they doing? Because I don't know what this looks like, right? Maybe there is something like that in my experience, and in the Kiwis' experience that I've spoken to, no one knows. However, you need to be able to know how to compile CV. So in that position, I learned 2 key fundamentals. I learned compiling the CV is extremely important. What it looks like is not really relevant. Don't put a photo of yourself in your CV. It looks, in my opinion, right? Not a good idea. I'm by no means a CV expert of what it should look like, but I can tell you what should be in it. When you look at this is what I did. When you look at the job ad, let me start with this. You cannot have a shotgun approach with your CV. You can't have one CV and then apply for 100 jobs with the same CV, right? You're not going to get an interview.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be applying for 50 jobs, you have 50 individually written CVs. It is a ton of work. It takes extremely long, but this is how you do it properly. I would read through that CV. I would identify specific keywords in the CV, and there's more behind it than just it going onto the CV. The systems are built.
When you say reading through the CV, do you mean reading through the job ad?
Sorry, reading through the job ad. Yes. So I'm reading through the job advert, and they give you the hints of what they want, certain keywords.
Yeah.
I would then write my CV to contain those exact specific keywords, right? And if you read through the job ad, you can identify what those keywords are by just reading through the ad, right? You can see, right? It would be executive reports, that kind of stuff. You can see when there are keywords.
Yeah.
You write your CV to match that actual job ad, right? If they say scaling systems, but you have built systems that are scalable, you go and change that to scaling systems. So it exactly matches the job ad. What you do then is you can see from the job ad, what is the skill stack they require? And probably, if you're lucky enough, in sequence too, right? What's most important to least important. So you need to do an analysis on every job ad you want to apply for. And with the introduction of AI, you can make this even easier. You can drop that ad into ChatGPT and tell it, list for me all the keywords in this job ad and tell me the skill stack from most to least important. It'll tell you, right? All you do then, rewrite your skills component on your CV to match their most to least important. Is your skills from most to least important? Is this a sales position that has a technical component? Well, then I'm a salesman with technical experience. Or is it a technical position, but I also need to be able to do a little bit of business development? Then I'm a technical expert, but I've also got BDM experience, right? So that's how you do your skill stack. So that's why I say you need to know how to compile a CV.
Yeah. I think one of the most things you've said now, Andre, that people need to understand. I know a lot of people, like you said, they say it's a Kiwi-based CV or whatever else. I think maybe for the benefit of doubt, I think a lot of people are saying that because as an immigrant, you don't understand what you're explaining now, that it has to be in a format, compile your CV in a format that will actually get the attention of the hiring manager, that he'll go, oh, it's matching. 100%. I want to see you. I think that's what needs to land for our viewers out there, or my viewers out there, is they really need to understand that. When people are saying Kiwi, but now be careful. Some people out there will go say, let me Kiwify your CV and make it Kiwi format, but it's making it look pretty. Okay. Looking pretty is not going to help you. It's what Andre's trying to explain now of the actual content and how the words are actually matching. I do have a question for you, Andre. I really get what you're saying. This is gold. It really is so important for people. But what about AI when you're applying for those jobs? So you're getting your one-pager CV aligned with the job ad and you're applying. Do you think AI is reading that and matching it up and trying to see, well, it doesn't have the keywords? Yeah, okay, take it to the next round. So it's shortlisting or not?
Right. So that's a very good point, right? So let's get into that. AI, yes, absolutely. However, before it even gets to an AI component, right? So during my national sales manager tenure and what I am now as a general manager, I have recruitment agents obviously kicking my door down, wanting to bring us candidates, right? So they always want to come and meet and have coffees and that kind of stuff, right? And what I find immensely interesting whenever we meet with them and we talk to them and sit down with them, I usually ask them to explain to me what systems they have in place, right, to screen candidates. I can tell you now, 90% of them, what they would do when they place the job ad on Seek, right, There are certain criteria when you place a job ad on Seek that you can set up certain filters, right? Is the person in country or offshore? Offshore candidates, if you're applying from offshore, and you won't know whether that ad was set up that way. If you're applying from offshore, your CV will get scrapped the second it hits the first gate, right? So it never even gets past the first gate. That's why I usually say to people, if you're finding it hard to find a job from South Africa, and a lot of people do. I mean, it's completely possible. A lot of people. But if you're finding that hard and people go, okay, well, is there really an advantage of being onshore? Yes, there is. Because in your CV, you have a +64 New Zealand phone number and you have a New Zealand address, right? The first gate on those systems will check two things. It will scan for a New Zealand number in your CV. It'll look for a New Zealand address in your CV, and it will check the box onshore. That means you automatically pass the first gate. Doesn't even matter what's in your CV. It doesn't even matter whether you're qualified for the job or not. Just those three things will get you past the gate one, right? And a lot of these recruitment companies use not just Seek. I mean, they would place the ad on Seek, and a lot of the times they would just let all applicants through on Seek, right? Then they have internal screening systems. They would look for phone numbers, addresses on offshore. That's the first thing it would look for. The second gate your CV needs to get through before it even gets to a human, if you remember those keywords we spoke about,
Yeah.
right? They have in their system, they would have, if it passes gate one, the guy's onshore, he has a local number because I can call him during my day and have an interview with him. I know where he lives, so I can invite him for an interview, right? And he gets to the second gate. Does he have the following keywords in his CV? That's why you custom write your CV so you can pass the second gate, right? So it's going to scan for certain keywords, scalability. It's going to look for management experience, business development, technical. It's going to look specifically for ICT, IT, CAS and SAS, for instance, right? If you're applying for software as a service role, that kind of stuff. It'll scan those keywords. ChatGPT, right in the beginning, had already told you what those keywords were. Make sure they're written word for word in your CV, right? That means now you will pass the second gate. So now you understand how the recruitment systems work to pass those gates. None of this has to do with your skills. None of this has to do with your qualifications or experience. All this has to do with is, do you know how to write a CV, and are you on site? Are you actually onshore, right? Are they able to call you during their day? And Kiwis are very old school that I found, a lot of them, especially very senior position Kiwis, right? They want to shake your hand. They want to look you in the eye, and they want to see whether they like you, because that's extremely important. And I've got to say something about being an Afrikaans-speaking Afrikaner South African. And I think South Africans in general, right? We are very vocal with our hands. We talk like this a lot, right? I've had to learn to fold my hands and keep them to my chest when I sit and have conversations with a lot of the Kiwis, right? Because this is a bit too much. Also, we are really used to being, and we're comfortable with being confrontational when we need to be, right? Because that's the work environment where we come from, right? We have a stand your ground mentality. I will stand my ground, right? And I will argue if I have to. And if someone cuts me off in traffic, is going to know all about it, right? Because it's the South Africanness that gets brought up within you when you live there, because that's our way of life. Here, that is not their way of life. They quickly pick up on that, and it is rather distasteful. They are not a big fan of the confrontational component of, and I had to learn that, right? Luckily, I worked for a extremely direct Kiwi. There was very experienced in this sort of stuff, and they had worked with a lot of South Africans. They coached me a lot when I was a software company.
To elaborate on that a little bit more for the greater audience, because what I mean is you've explained what a South African is like, culture like, or what we are with our body language, way we are in the work world, okay, because we've had to be, but that's South African. Try and rather for the broader audience, so it wouldn't only benefit immigrants, South Africans, but all immigrants. What are you actually looking for? What is the culture they're actually looking for? Expand on that for us a little bit, Andre, if you can.
Okay. So a very good way to approach that is, this is what I had to do, right? In order to get myself to be palatable, if I can put it that way, right? Is not be extremely vocal with my hands. I needed to tone down my voice a little bit, because I could be rather aggressive in my way of speaking, tone down my voice a little bit. And then if I can if I can sort of use it in this sense, is when I spoke to Peter, for instance, let me give an example. I spoke to him one day, and we were actually talking about movies, right? And I said to him, "You really have to watch this movie, right? It's a good movie." Because in South Africa, we would go, "You got to watch this movie." And he said, "Can I give you a tip?" I went, "Yeah, sure, of course." He goes, "Don't tell me what I have to do, because I don't have to do nothing, right?" A good approach would be is I would highly recommend, this is a good movie and I think you would enjoy it, right? So there's just a little bit of a softer approach on certain things, right? Instead of us being a little bit blunt sometimes, approaching a situation with, instead of statements, approaching a situation with questions. So in a meeting, someone would say something and I would go, "Well, I don't agree with that." That's a statement. Or I would go, "Do you maybe think that, would you be open to a different idea?" Right? So I have changed my statements to questions a lot more, because questions are a lot more palatable and it actually invites a bilateral communication.
Yeah.
Whereas every time the South African in me comes out a little bit, I would go, "Oh, whoa, I don't agree with that," right? Because from my experience, I know, right? This,
Yeah.
this, and this, right? Except because I'm correct. My logic is undeniable, right? That is how I'm used to operating. But when I came here, I would rather stick up my hand, wait for your turn, and then just say, "Are you open to a different point of view? Don't you think if we maybe do this and this and this, we could plausibly have this outcome? What's your view on that?"
Yeah.
And that opened a lot of doors for me, I must say, from a cultural perspective. Instead of being direct and confrontational, I would rather raise concern and invite conversation.
Yeah.
Right? So being just a little bit softer in that way. However, I can also add, don't not be your South African self, right?
Yeah.
From my experience, they have a lot of respect for us. They like South Africans in general. They find us to be extremely hardworking people, and they find us to be, and I've been told before, honest, family-orientated people. We can just be a little bit abrasive sometimes. So if we can just take that abrasive edge off a little bit, right, in approaching situations with questions and inviting dialogue instead of being direct and confrontational, that rounds us off so well. We're likable. We're easy to work with. If you can do that, likable, easy to work with. We're hardworking. We're really family orientated people. Some of the older Kiwis are really much like that. So that then puts this whole package together for them, right? Which, and I just found those tips just to be extremely helpful. Just to get back to, we were still busy with the different systems, right? The internal system. So you've got now how you've got the job ad, you wrote your CV properly, you got past gate 1, you got past the second gate. Your third gate, now it's going to get to a person, right? So the recruitment person, the recruitment manager, whatever the case may be, will now sit down and read your CV. From personal experience, from doing this a lot, they are going to read the first half of the first page, and they're going to throw it on either one or two piles, right? So if you're lucky and they have a bit of time, they might read the whole first page, one page. That's what you got, right? Where they say you got the first 5 seconds to make an impression, right? When you meet someone in person, same thing. The first page of your CV, going to make it or break it, going to depend on which pile you end up on. So you're either going to go straight in the bin, or you're going to go on the next on the interview pile. So that's why if you submit a CV that's going to be 10 pages, right? Everyone picks it up and goes, "Oh, a novel," right? No one wants to read a novel. So again, with the emergence of AI, this helps a lot. Summarize. Yes.
What about cover letters? What's your opinion on cover letters?
Cover letters it's good to add a good cover letter, right? But in my experience, usually what they'll do, they'll scan through the cover letter in about 2 seconds, go, yep, whatever. And then they'll read the first page of your CV, right? So I'm not saying don't add a cover letter. I've always added a cover letter. The cover letter is more sort of, this is who I am. Dear hiring manager, I'm interested in the position for the following reasons. That's exactly what all the other 342 applications cover letters look like as well.
Yep.
Right. The one thing that's going to be unique to you is the first page of your CV. So add a cover letter, do a good job at it, but make sure the first page of your CV tells them what they need to know. Why are you relevant for the specific position you're applying for? Not in detail, high level, to just say, I'm a technical sales expert with CAS experience, I've done business development. So I have a little thing on my CV that says skills, right? And I bullet point some of them where they can go, check, 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 check. Oh, this looks like this guy has everything that I need, right? Go to CV, go in the interview pile. By the time it reaches the second human, now you've gone through 3 different gates. Only on the 4th gate, generally, will someone page past the first page and actually look, do you have the degree you say you claim you have? Do you have the experience you claim you have? That sort of thing. They would then read it. That's at that point then we would be called and say, hey, come and do an interview with us. Let's meet with you. Let's see what you like, right? The soft skills that we spoke about before becomes very handy in that situation, right? Because if you're going to be sitting in an interview and you come across as too abrasive, too aggressive, or if you come across an interview, you can answer questions. And the dismounting in an interview, please, if I can just mention 1 or 2 things. I have done probably over 300 or 400 interviews in New Zealand as the employer, right?
Yeah.
I've recruited close on 50 something odd people. I've built 3 technical software and hardware development teams across 2 different companies, defense and in software. The dismount, and what I mean by dismount when someone asks you a question, is immensely important. Someone asks you a question and says, tell me about your technical background. You'll have someone that'll waff on for 20 minutes because once they start talking, they don't know when to dismount and keep quiet, right? So answer the question, don't repeat yourself, answer the question, get to the point and zip it so that the hiring manager can ask you the next question, right? The dismount is important. And for the love of everything good in the world, right? I did this in the beginning. A lot of South Africans do this, and I've seen this a lot in different interviews, specifically with, and strangely enough, other cultures don't do this. I've interviewed a lot of Chinese because they are phenomenally smart people. They've got great work culture, right? And they're probably some of the best software developers I've ever seen, right? They're incredible. They don't do this. Iranians don't do it. French people don't do it. English don't do it. It's only a South African that will say the phrase, I am willing to do anything, right? And I understand why. I did the same thing in the beginning. They're so desperate to find a job, move to New Zealand, bring their families here. This is, in my opinion, the single best place in the world to live, right? I won't live anywhere else. This is my experience, this is my opinion. You can welcome to differ with that, but this is my opinion.
I love it, yeah. That's why I want to help more people make it out.
Love it. And understand they mean what they say. They would literally do anything to come, but don't say that. Yeah. Because every company that employs someone for a specific reason, they want to employ a specialist in a specific thing. If I'm going to employ a salesperson, I need a specialist salesman. If I'm going to be employing a software developer, a hardware engineer, a process engineer, I need a specialist in what I'm going to do. And if you say, I am willing to do anything, you dilute your worth, you dilute your value, right? And you sort of portray yourself as a jack of all trades and not a specialist. Another thing you do not say in an interview, please, is I am an extremely fast learner. Because I'm an extremely fast learner means I don't know how to do what you want me to do, but I'll learn it quickly if you're willing to take me and wait until I learn how to do this thing. Don't say that. When you go and sit in an interview, be confident in what you do. I will not do absolutely anything. I will do this specific thing because I'm a specialist in this thing and I will do it incredibly well. And that's why you need me, right? You're a specialist in what you do. Yeah. And I must say that helps enormously, right? Whenever I sit in an interview in South Africa and specifically do this and they mention those phrases, I can see our hiring manager and the head of department, whichever department they go, I can see them roll their eyes, right? Because they only hear this from Saffers. And if I do get an opportunity to get them for 2 seconds before, I would usually go, please don't say that in this interview. It does not help you, right? So from understanding how to compile a CV, how to work in the interviews, how to invite questions, understanding how the recruitment systems work, how to get through those different gates, right? You would probably probably be able to get a pretty good job offer, right? So if I can be 100% honest with you, when I got the job as the general manager of a defense organization, right? The last one I told you that I applied for, and I went for the interview. It was a big panel. I was really nervous. I'm not even going to lie, right? That was very stressful. But in that interview, I mentioned a couple of things where I said to them that I am not the most competent technical person in the world, right? But I know how to build a team that is, right? And that's exactly what they wanted to hear, right? Because they needed someone to come and look after and fix the culture, right? That's specifically what they needed. And that was a very small 5 or 6 word one-liner way at the bottom of the job description, because they send you the JD before you go for the interview. Right. And I sat and meticulously read the job description. And right at the bottom, they mentioned that they would want someone to come and fix the culture. And I thought to myself, well, that's probably the hardest thing to do that they've got listed on the CV, right? The contracts and the business development stuff and all the software, hardware, all this. These are all skills that we all have, but I can go to another guy that knows more than me and get, right? If you don't know how to rebuild a culture within an organization, you don't know how to employ the right people with the right cultural approach, that's a mess, right? So I must say I chose that because I picked up on that's something important in the job description to them. And it's probably the hardest thing that they're going to need to achieve. And I focused on that quite heavily in the interview. And I was lucky enough to have hit the target bullseye on that one, right? So I wrote a CV for a job that I actually wasn't qualified for. I managed to secure an interview for a job that I wasn't qualified for, right? I managed to get through the interview for a position that I was not qualified for, right? I really wasn't, because they wanted someone with a degree in electronic engineering. I have matric, I have standard 10, I have high school. That's it. I didn't have any of the tertiary qualifications that they required from me. But when I sat in the meeting, I didn't have the technical skills, the background, none of the stuff they particularly required from me. But they liked me, and they liked me a lot, right? So I've been in the position now for 3 years. I've rebuilt the entire company because COVID ravished the company, right? There's probably a quarter of the staff left. I've now rebuilt it to where we had double the staff we had before COVID, right? So I've probably built another 20, 30 odd people on top of the team that we had. And I have a really good relationship with some of the senior leadership team, the directors that I report to. And the whole point is that I wasn't the most qualified, but I was going to bring a good culture. I understood how to build teams, and they liked me, and they felt they could trust me.
Yeah.
That was the make it or break it for me. So at the moment now, I've been in that position for the past 3 years. I'm extremely happy with the company where I am at the moment. For the first time, I think, in our lives, between myself and my wife, she's got a fairly good position. I've got a fairly good position. And I must say, I've just got to add something else too. From where I landed in New Zealand, having a door-to-door salesman job, using all of these things that I've mentioned in this interview, right? Just applying them at the right times. I went from door-to-door junior door-to-door salesman to being the general manager of one of the largest defense companies in Australasia in 4 years. 4 years. Took me 4 years. I've been in the country for 7 years. I've now been in my general manager position for 3. From where I landed to GM in 4 years. And all that was compiling that skill stacking, writing the CVs, applying for the jobs. And then luckily I worked with someone that helped me to change my soft skills and just change my mannerisms a little bit, right? And even around the accent, right? South Africans have quite a strong accent, especially my wife. She's quite sensitive about her accent.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a guy one day at the council, and he said to me, don't try and change your accent. He says, it's something that makes you unique. Just because you sound different. He says, and the fact that you sound different, use that to your advantage. Because if you just sound like everyone else, you're sort of camouflaged from an auditory perspective, right?
Yeah. Oh,
the fact that I sound different really plays to my advantage, because now people have something else to remember you by, right? And what was that guy at that company, the South African guy, right? So they're going to remember me because I'm from a different background, and I sound a little bit different. So don't be self-conscious about your accent. It's a good thing. And also there are so many different cultures, so many different people, and so many different languages, and it's truly multicultural in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
That no one will be put off by it at all. So I just want to mention that to the South Africans, too,
Awesome,
because a
thank
lot of
you.
us that come across, a lot of us go, oh, I sound a bit different. I've got it.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard guys say the same, especially
Oh,
the
absolutely.
South Africans from an Afrikaans background. They've often said that to me. So I'm glad you
100%.
added that on, which is so important. Andre, look, I think what you've shared with us today, I'm so grateful. I think there's gold here today that's really going to help people. I think currently, as it stands in New Zealand at the moment, I can see it with the audience. A lot of people are already struggling with finding those jobs. Never mind people outside the country just trying to get in. That's one thing, to try to be able to move here. But there's people that are on the market at the moment. We've just come out of a recession, or on our way out of a recession. So the market is tough at the moment. So I think this is gold to try and help people, and not just South Africans, not just immigrants, actually anyone on trying to find a job. I think you've highlighted some things that are so important. And I've been smiling through this whole interview because I've done a lot of interviews as well here, and I've been hiring a lot of people too. And stuff to just say, it's like, yep, tick, yep. That's why I put it on that file. Yep, I rolled my eyes. 100%. It's gold what you've shared here. So what I can really do is just thank you a hell of a lot, Andre, for taking the time to share with us, to try and help others. So it's like paying it forward to try and help them just be able to secure their job. And not only what you shared around a job here, Andre, I really just also want to thank you for opening up and telling us a little bit about your story. I mean, it's unbelievable how you came across here with your family with literally nothing, okay? And how you built your way up. You have shown grit that is like the true meaning of grit, okay? There are people that come across with way more than you, and we complain a lot. But to come across with what you've come across to make it work, I think that's also what I want people to see, is that it's tough out there, but you still can make this work. This still is a beautiful thing. If it's something you want enough, you will fight for it and you'll make it happen. And you just got to keep something and you never give up. So I really appreciate it. Maddie, I know I've said a lot, but I want to close with you, Maddie. What are the key things you would like to be your message, to just land with the audience? What are the key things you want them to take home? Just let's finish up with those so that they can hear that from you.
Moving to New Zealand is a real commitment, right? And I always say to people that this country will give you what you give it, right? And it really is. And that's truly, and I mean, I have a deep love for South Africa, but I can definitely say that's not something that I found there. I gave it my everything and it didn't give it back to me.
Yeah.
My story is just, if you come to New Zealand and you give it a good attitude, whether you struggle or not, right? Get out, man. This place is insanely beautiful, right? There's so many gems all around. There's waterfalls, there's walking trails, there's all sorts of things, right? Get out and enjoy this country.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, become a part of the communities when you get here, right? There's no point in sitting in your home and going, oh, well, I don't feel at home in New Zealand. How many Kiwis have you gone out with? You know, how involved have you gotten in the Maori culture? You know, spend a bit of time with these people. They're amazing people and they like the South Africans, but they're not going to reach out to you first, right? When you're at work, make friends with them, go out from them, learn from them, right? Something that we should not do is, in all of our conversations with them, we always I see a lot of South Africans do this. We go, oh, back home in South Africa, we this. Don't do that, right? It's one of those other little things that we just need to calm down a little bit. We're in New Zealand. So when I feel the urge of saying, well, in South Africa, we do this and this, I rather go, well, in New Zealand, I see that you do this and this and this. Why is that? Right? It makes it so you're truly inquisitive about the place and the situation you're in now, and they really like you, right? And if you commit to this country and you really do well, you work hard, like, you will get somewhere. I tell you now, you will get somewhere. If you have a good mindset, you have a good attitude, and you really embrace this country and its culture, right? I can tell you now, you will get somewhere. I have so many South African friends that have come to New Zealand and have been immensely successful, like you cannot believe, right? I have one specific case of a good friend that came across, and they lived in their car for the first, I think, 3 weeks. They bought a little car. They lived in the car. His wife and children sat in the reception area of his business while he went to work every single day, right? This is how they worked. They suffered 10 times worse than us. At the moment, he owns a massive plumbing electrical business he built from the ground up. It's boats and jet skis and Ford Rangers and all sorts of things you can imagine, right? Because they had the grit to get through the hard part. They got to residency, then they built something, right? And if you have the grit to get through the hard part, make it to residency, and that proverbial noose is off your neck and you can start doing something. And if you put a bit of effort in there, you will have unparalleled success. I tell you now, and happiness is peace, right? I always say this. Happiness is peace. If you've got peace in your household, you've got peace at work, you've got peace in your country, you've got peace in your private life. Happiness is a side effect of peace. New Zealand is a manifestation of peace for me, right? Get through the hard bits. It's not going to be easy, but if you can do that, you can get to the peaceful stage in your New Zealand journey. Oh man, it's good. It's so good.
Oh, Andre, thank you. I couldn't have closed any better. That's really awesome. So thank you. I have no doubt this is going to help a lot of those people out there, be it immigrants or not, that are really struggling to find their jobs. So thank you for sharing this insight.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Really helpful. And I really appreciate it, Andre. So you must take it easy and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, Ray.
Ciao.
Okay.